Good morning. My name is Jackson Reimer, and so today I'm going to talk about the effect of artificial structures on species diversity and richness. So my problem statement is, how will a structured environment affect the species diversity and richness of neritic fish of Dauphin Island? And so a neritic fish is a fish that lives inshore. And so some background information. Structures are pivotal pieces of an environment. They provide smaller fish with shelter and food, so shelter being from the larger fish, the predators, and then the food being the primary producers located like maybe on a rock that are growing on the rocks. And then, so I know now that Mobile Bay is an estuary, and so these structures are very important for the juvenile fish that grow and live and they grow up in the estuary, and so they need the structures to hide from predators so that they can live on to adulthood. And so my hypothesis is that the structure in an environment will significantly increase species diversity and richness. So my methods are, first I had to choose 2 locations to test. So I chose both of them on the east end of the island and at the beach behind the Sea Lab. And so my structured location was along a groin, which is essentially a bunch of rocks that we put to prevent erosion, but they provide good shelter for fish, and they provide a place for algae to grow. And then my second location was just like open beach off the east end. There was no structure, it was just sand. And so to begin, I chose a location, I made field observations, noted the time of day, and then I began preliminary processes, which included taking a transect line out 25 meters so that I marked a distance and kept that distance the entire time. And then I completed 15 seines, which some people have already presented. So a seine is essentially you have 2 wooden posts and then a net that runs in between them, and you have weights on the bottom and floats on the top, and you want to keep the weights under the water so that they brush the surface, the floor, and you can maximize your catch. And so the goal is to move in unison and flip the net when you get on shore. And so I completed 15 seines at each location, and then the next day I did 15 more seines at the other location at the exact same time. And so after I completed those, I assessed the data. And so these are all the fish that I caught at the structured environment. There's 13 total, and these are all the fish that I caught at the non-structured environment. And so what you'll see in my graphs is that the most abundant fish are scaled sardine, anchovy, and catfish. So this graph shows that. So you can kind of see that they kind of stretch the graph. It's hard to see the smaller fish, so I made a separate graph for that. And what this basically tells us is, again, I caught 13 species at the structured environment and only 6 at the non-structured. And then if you look, you'll also notice that I generally caught more fish per species. Like the abundance was greater at the structured environment. So I then calculated richness, which is essentially the number of species per effort, which in this case was a seine. So I calculated the number of species caught in each seine. I averaged that, and then I put it into a graph so you can see. And the structured environment had, on average, about 3 more species than the non-structured. And I calculated standard deviation to look for a significant difference, and the error bars do not overlap, which indicates a statistically significant difference, which supports my hypothesis. And then I also did a Simpson's diversity index. And so one of the conflicts that I had in my project was that within the first 3 seines at the structured environment, I caught over 850 anchovies, and that's a lot of fish to count. And so after those 3 seines, I did not count anchovies anymore because I risked killing all the other fish in the net. So it could have skewed this result. So I calculated the diversity index without anchovies so that it would remove any bias from the numbers. And again, it shows the structured environment having a greater species diversity. And so, again, to repeat what I've already said, artificial structures like jetties or groins are integral parts of a marine ecosystem, especially in an estuarian ecosystem, because they protect the juvenile fish. And so the results from my testing supported my hypothesis. There was a significant difference between the two locations, and the greatest diversity and richness was found in the structured environment. I would like to give a thanks to all the people who helped me seine, which would be Andrew, Mac, Reed, and the educators and mentors for helping me with any complications I had or any questions. And then all the counselors who helped me go out and collect my data and also answered any questions I had. The Emerging Scholars Program, Dr. Ram Kassoon, and the graduate assistants, Peyton, Caitlin, and Ashley, for whom I would not be here without, and my parents for their support and patience with my variable communication. So, any questions?